Thank you so much, and good afternoon. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you to the National Conference on Citizenship for convening this. Thank you for gathering and focusing on building civic resilience. To me, this has been a vivid reminder of just how much creative energy is moving forward in this space to try to meet the moment. And thank you for David and to those of you who are on our panel for that discussion. What struck me most about these reflections is not only the opportunities, but also the honest acknowledgement of the challenges, the very real challenges of what this is. And I think a lot of people need to hear that, even while we're calling for more. Because gaining civic muscle in a time like this, with so much pain and so much hatred, is a challenge, and yet it is the only solution. Darkness never gets rid of darkness. Hate never gets rid of hate. Only light gets rid of darkness. Only love gets rid of hate. As Brave Angel's new CEO, I'm still adjusting. I think it's been 7 weeks. The last 5 days have been pretty intense. But to be honest, in starting with this, I felt like I was kind of handed the playbook on the shoulders of so many people working so much of here's how to heal America. But when I was on about a third of the way through, turned the page, and alone on that page, it was blank until it said, "You've got it from here." But that's my learning curve. I'll learn from all of you doing together. I've been a volunteer in this space, but now moving in full force is because this is a mission I feel called to, as I'm sure is consistent with many of you. It's a privilege to share a few words to kind of step back on this. And heaven knows we don't need another litany of statistics to prove that we're in a civic crisis. The events of the past week alone demonstrate the collapse of social trust and hatred that's present in many circles. We know these patterns: rising polarization, declining trust in institutions, mistrust of media, spread of misinformation, despair. And we're living the experience of accelerating political violence and the inability to have productive conflict. I'm from Utah. I live 25 miles from the campus of UVU. My wife and 4 of our kids have attended that university. Each year, it's where our community has our high school graduations. Last Wednesday, our nephew and his wife were at that Charlie Kirk event. My daughter's friend was seated in the front row, senior in high school. No matter your feeling about Charlie Kirk, his methods, his words, each of those people observed an assassination of a young father engaging in debate on a college campus. It does not matter the viewpoints he was sharing. It's the tragedy that was experienced, the memories that will not be forgotten. I have other nephews and nieces who attended the same school in southern Utah as Tyler Robinson, the accused shooter. They and their parents are trying to process how someone from their town could move from the online discussions of hatred sufficient to take the real-world steps to kill someone for their words. I think of the shooter's parents making the decision to help their son take the responsibility for his actions. I worry about the realities of the labeling associated with who this person was and what his beliefs were. But those actions are indicative of our crisis. We've allowed the narrative to be defined by conflict entrepreneurs, people who make money and gain power off of our division. To many Americans, our system feels distant, out of control, and most importantly, it's something that we have nothing to do with. But that's absolutely not true. We will not experience change until we take accountability for the reality in front of us. It only works for the industrial outrage complex when we participate in their scheme. As Americans, more than anywhere else in the world, we have the power to shape the society we desire to live in and that we desire to leave for our children. That's not just some nice kumbaya statement. It's real. It's true. It's worth remembering this isn't the first time America's lived through such fracture. At the turn of the 20th century, the nation was convulsed by the upheavals of industrialization, mass immigration, stark inequality. Political machines and corporate monopolies dominated public life. Racial terror was codified into law in the South. Leading writers and thinkers of their time, as well as everyday citizens, worried aloud that democracy was failing, that corruption and rancor had hollowed out the civic heart of our country. Does that sound familiar to what we feel today? And yet history reminds us that that low tide did not mark the end of the American experiment. In fact, it marked the beginning of a new wave of renewal. Ordinary citizens, not elites, not politicians, not professionals, they stepped forward to build new civic institutions. The civic infrastructure that we're talking about today. Settlement houses, Rotary, the Scouts, the NAACP, 4-H, the League of Women Voters, the United Way. All of these things that we now take for granted as institutions in the United States once began as a fragile, scattered experiment after that moment in time. Critics at the time dismissed it as too small to matter. But they multiplied, they scaled, and they became the civic infrastructure that carried us forward for a century. The lesson, fragility is not failure. In fact, fragility is the natural first stage of resilience. Let me return to Utah over the past few days. Within 2 hours of the assassination, a group of us, all Utahns, we gathered on a call. We'd become friends over the last 5 years through our work in the community, and we also happen to be leaders in 7 different national organizations that work in civic renewal, all living right there. We moved quickly. We crafted a message to our friends, families, and neighbors in Utah, working with many of our people in the army of people in each of our organizations. We crafted a message about the meaning of this moment and the imperative to act instead of react. Within 24 hours, we had a resource online that was built to share with people and to encourage them to turn toward each other at turntoward.us, and offering them access to resources, to tools, and upcoming events that they could experience to help consider what to do within their own sphere of influence. And within 48 hours of the shooting, we were at the Capitol building in Salt Lake with over 100 Utahns on a Friday afternoon, and the media releasing this resource and calling on citizens to take control of our own response as individuals, as families, as neighbors, as a state, as Americans. We presented simple, accessible, and effective resources for multiple organizations, but made them easy for people to find, not requiring that they go through our organization to get there. The morning of the event, our PR partners recommended you should postpone because they caught the shooter. The story's going to shift. We said, no, we can't. The story we know that Utahns need and the story that Americans need is the one that we're there to say. And we showed up, and people showed up. Not elected officials, just citizens, and a lot of them. Now, there's a long road still ahead for us in Utah, for us in the United States. Make no mistake, what we're doing today and everything we are about is about a countercultural movement. This is not what the dominant narrative is inviting us to do. But that's the spirit behind citizen-led solutions, to bridge the political divide in a way that cannot be ignored and cannot be overlooked. My good friend Manu Meal the other night, at a gathering we had with national organizations with 1,500 people, he said, this is a call to outrageously bridge build. We call it courageous citizenship. Braver Angels launched CLS this year, not as a departure from what we've done, but as a deepening of our mission. For nearly a decade, what we've done has been known for depolarization. Our work has touched thousands of lives and has proven that well-directed dialogue matters when driven by energetic volunteers that have good training. But depolarization, powerful as it is not enough. If dialogue ends at understanding, people walk away hopeful but still asking, now what? CLS represents a new emphasis for Braver Angels in 2 ways. First, we're infusing our depolarization activities with opportunities for citizen action. We want our training, our debates, our workshops, our discussions, not just to bridge divides, but also to spark collaboration, co-creation, integrating of ideas on shared local challenges. And second, we're doubling down on our strategy of building and equipping local alliances. We have 124 now. These are our chapters around the country. But we're equipping those to become epicenters of civic renewal, like the civic hubs that Vinay was just talking about, others have said. Alliances where Braver Angels members put dialogue into practice, and now where they will also put collaboration into action. Every Braver Angels activity is designed so that ordinary people, like teachers, parents, students, retirees, that can run them, not civic professionals. We've learned that when local citizens lead, the work has deeper legitimacy and greater power. If history rhymes, then there are two key lessons among many others that teach us. First, renewal begins locally, then multiplies nationally. Whole House started with one Chicago neighborhood. Rotary started with 4 friends. The NAACP started with a handful of organizers. Scale came later. And the second lesson, that resilience doesn't just come from structures, it comes from practice. As we've heard so many times of this idea of civic muscle. Like any muscle, civic muscle only grows by being used. We grow stronger in self-government not by leading through exercises designed by others, but by lifting the weight ourselves, tackling problems together, improvising solutions, building trust rep by rep in the gym. Institutions can provide that gym, but people must do the training themselves. And so here we are today. We have a choice, in my mind. As Governor Cox said in our state, is this the end of a dark chapter or is this the beginning of a much darker one? I believe in the aftermath and even before this string of assassinations that we're seeing signs, first signs, of another civic renaissance. We see them here today. This is our National Week of Citizenship in this country. 238 years ago tomorrow, the framers of the American experiment signed our Constitution. Next year, we celebrate 250 years. From that moment, it all started with the Declaration of Independence. Today is our moment to declare interdependence. It's a choice. It's our choice. Each American, each of us here today, everyone listening. None of these programs that we're all involved in are perfect. Many of the things we do look boutique, scattered, and fragile, and some funders or policymakers dismiss them in our time as being marginal. I've been asked many times in the last 4 days by reporters, is this a sign that this work does not work? I said, no, it's a sign that this is a time to live the things that we've been teaching, the things that we know to be true. But that's exactly what critics said about settlement houses, scout troops, League of Women Voters, and community chests in 1900. If we've learned anything from history, it's that fragility is not a reason to doubt, it's a reason to invest. Now let me address finally a reality many in this room grapple with. The roles of philanthropy, professionals, and institutions, they're indispensable. We can't do the work without all three. And yet too often, even with our best intentions, we default to models that place citizens at the margins. Citizens are asked to participate in programs designed elsewhere, to engage with agendas crafted by experts, or to provide input into initiatives they don't really own. This isn't because of malice, it's because citizen-led efforts often look messy, hard to measure, and difficult to scale. Professionalized organizations, by contrast, look predictable, manageable, fundable. We just heard the discussion of that, but history also tells us when citizens are at the margins, civic renewal stalls. When citizens are at the center, civic renewal spreads. The question is not how can institutions better lead people? The question is how can institutions better support people to lead themselves? Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country, echoes from a later assassinated U.S. president in his words in 1961. All of this rests on a deeper truth. American democracy has always been citizen-led. Our founding promise is that sovereignty resides with the people, from the Declaration of Independence to the Progressive Era to today's renewal. The through line is the same. Civic health is not handed down from above. It's generated by people themselves. And that health depends on more than laws and policies. It depends on culture. The 20th century civic renaissance worked not just because it built organizations, but because it built rituals and habits of belonging. Badges, service days, pledges, community halls gave people a sense of identity, agency, and shared purpose. Theodore Roosevelt put it plainly in 1899 when he said, the main source of national power and national greatness is found in the average citizenship of the nation. Local organization is what fascinated Alexis de Tocqueville about America in 1831. It's citizens who must lead. History calls them ordinary or average. At Braver Angels, we know they're both courageous and capable. So let me close with this call to action. If we're serious, I just left a 30-year career to jump into this because I believe this with all my heart. But if we're serious, like I believe we are, about building civic resilience, then our task is not simply designing better institutions, policies, or programs. Our task is to equip average Americans to trust each other and to lead together. Let us commit to making our work less about how institutions, professionals, and experts can better engage people, and more about how people engage with each other to lead their communities and together our democracy, our republic. That is what civic muscle means. It's not something institutions give to people. It's something citizens build by using it. Like Sarah from Oxford in one of our CLS case studies said about her community's efforts on affordable housing, we own what we make. And her neighbor Lynn offered this hope. If you're thinking you could do this in your community, you can. History tells us this is possible. The present tells us this is necessary. And the future will depend on whether we have the courage to trust our citizens and ourselves to lead. Thank you very much.